Well, good morning, everyone. Happy Friday morning to you, and welcome back to Morning Musings here on Now TV. My name is Don K. Preston. I'm the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. And for those of you who have inquired, many of you, many of you, private messages about my recent cataract surgery, I have to be really honest with you at this particular point, 2 weeks now, almost 3 weeks after the surgery. I'm not at all pleased. I'm not at all impressed. The we put one of the bifocal or dual function lenses into my left eye here. It's supposed to give me improved far off, improved up close. Well, I have to say I have some marginal improvement up close. Although I'm wearing my reading glasses right now, I'm using basically the right eye. The left eye is not as clear. Now, maybe that much better than it was before the implant, but I don't know. I'm withholding the judgment. Now, the doctor did tell me that sometimes with this particular type of implant, the dual function, that it doesn't really, shall we say, kick in until you put the other side in as well. Well, that's really convenient because that's a lot of money. So it almost seems like a sales pitch to me, but I'm just not impressed. I'll just leave it at that. I'm rather disappointed in it. I was hoping for a whole lot more clarity. And some mornings I wake up and it's like, oh, okay, that seems better. Other mornings, like day before yesterday, I woke up and it's like, whoa, the fog is here. Now I do go back for them to do a laser treatment, which is just part of the whole process, in which they go in and they do something. I don't know what it is they do. But anyway, they do that by laser. So hopefully at the end of that treatment, hopefully I will get that dramatic improvement that I was hoping for. Okay, so here we go. We are continuing our examination of the challenge of Christ. John chapter 10, verse 37. Do not believe me for my word's sake, believe me for my works. Jesus was very emphatic. If he did not do everything that the Father gave him to do, if he did not do everything that he said he was going to do, we are not supposed to believe in him. So what did Jesus say he was going to do? Well, the skeptics know this, the atheists know this, Muslims know this, the Jews know this. Jesus said he was going to come back in the glory of the Father with his angels in the judgment of every man in the first century, while some of the people standing around him were still alive. Matthew 16, 27 and 28. Now, the traditional view of eschatology, the traditional view concerning the coming of the Lord, the judgment, the resurrection, etc., says, oh, that takes place at the end of time. That takes place after the Lord, or at the time the Lord destroys heaven and earth. That takes place at the end of the Christian age. Well, here's a clue for you. The Bible says the Christian age has no end. How can you have the coming of the Lord, judgment, and resurrection at the end of the Christian age if the Christian age has no end? I'll keep asking that question until it kicks in. Quick anecdote. Some years ago, 2016, I believe it was, I was in a formal public debate with Dr. David Hester of Faulkner University. And he kept talking about the end of the age, the end of the age. And I asked him to clarify, are you talking about the end of the current age? Yes. Okay. I got up and had some charts, and I made the point, according to the Bible, the Christian age has no end. When I made that point, ladies and gentlemen, there was literally an electric shock went through the entire audience. You could see people going, I could see husbands and wives turning to each other going, wow. It was an electric moment. Dr. David Hester never said one word in response to that argument. You know why? He can't. The Bible is unequivocally clear. The current age, the reign of Christ on the throne of David, has no end. Luke 1, 32 and 33. Hello? So anyway, Jesus said if he did not do everything that the Father gave him to do, if he did not do everything that he said he was going to do, we're not supposed to believe in him. So once again, the atheists, skeptics, Muslims, Jews, etc., say, see, Jesus said he was coming back to put an end to the age in that generation, and he didn't do it. Therefore, Jesus is a liar. He's a false prophet. We can't believe in him. The problem, ladies and gentlemen, is an utter failure. In some instances, it is an utter refusal to consider, to acknowledge the metaphoric nature of the language of the coming of the Lord on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. That language, used consistently in the Old Testament, never, ever, ever applied to an end of time, end of the Christian age, physical coming of Jesus out of heaven on a literal cumulus cloud as a 5'5" Jewish man in a physical body. Never. And yet, as a result of the Hellenization of ancient Hebrews, as a result of Hellenization, even in the early church, there very quickly came to be a loss of understanding of that apocalyptic language. And here we are today, 2,000 years later, and the church is being confronted more and more and more with the challenge of Christ. More and more and more militant unbelievers of all stripes, religious and unreligious, are placing on the table the number one challenge. Jesus said he was coming back in the first century. He didn't do it. Therefore, Christianity is a hoax. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are not capable, if you are not equipped, if you are not knowledgeable enough to answer that challenge, what are you going to do when an atheist, Muslim, Jew, skeptic, whatever, hits you in the face with it? I was knocking on doors in an evangelistic effort some years ago, right here in Ardmore, Oklahoma. Knocked on the door of an atheist. Didn't know he was an atheist, obviously. And boy, he just hit me right in the face. Jesus was a liar. He was a false prophet. I said, why do you say that? Well, he said he was coming back in the first century. He didn't do it. Everybody knows that. I said, well, what would happen if I could show you that he really did come back? He said, well, you can't do it because we're still here. What if I could show you that he never intended, in a literal physical sense, to come out of heaven as a 5'5" Jewish man, but rather he was going to use one nation to judge another nation in his sovereign authority? And he's going, what are you talking about? We had a pretty good discussion. And he said, well, if you can prove that, he said, obviously Jesus is not a liar. Thank you very much. But he wouldn't agree to study with me at all. I think he saw the train coming. Listen, I want to say this. I want to say this kindly. I want to say it with respect. Hundreds upon thousands, perhaps millions of Christians have struggled to understand, to comprehend the depth of the challenge of Christ. They have failed to comprehend how serious the problem is. They put their head in the sand, as it were, And to go back to the movie, Gone with the Wind, I'll think about that tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to wake up. It's time to address the challenge of Christ. So, what have we been doing? I have been demonstrating to you, first of all, the apocalyptic, the figurative, the metaphoric nature of the language of the coming of the Lord on the clouds with the angels and flaming fire, etc., etc. The language is never, ever used literally to speak of physical realities in a one-to-one correspondence between the language and the reality. Never. Point number 2, that metaphoric language. Now, here's a hermeneutical question for you that I've posed before. I want you to think about it. I recently posed this question to a PhD professor guy who was attacking preterism. And he started out by saying, well, we do have all these passages in the Old Testament that are metaphoric. The coming of the Lord against Egypt, against Babylon, against the 10 northern tribes, against Sidon, against Tyre, blah, blah, blah. He said, sure, that's metaphoric language. I said, great. Here's my hermeneutical question to you, doctor. I won't call his name. We've been trying to arrange a formal public debate. He won't even respond to the challenges. So anyway, here's my hermeneutical question. This discussion took place on Facebook about 6 or 8 months ago. When a New Testament writer quotes from, cites, or alludes to an Old Testament prophecy that is demonstrably metaphoric, figurative, non-literal, non-physical, what is your hermeneutic for saying that the New Testament writer is changing the metaphoric, figurative, non-literal, non-physical meaning and application of that language and demand that it be used now in the New Testament in a prosaic, literalistic, physical sense? He completely abandoned the discussion. Left. You know why? Because he saw the train coming. He knows that if New Testament writers are using Old Testament metaphoric language, then the New Testament writers, unless they just tell us flat out, unless we are given some contextual clues that absolutely, unequivocally, undeniably demand a literalistic application of the language, then you don't have an argument. You don't have authority for saying, oh yeah, well, in the New Testament it's different. Okay, I've got to hurry here. I want to get back to Revelation chapter 11, because here's what we've been doing. I've been sharing with you how the Old Testament talked about the time of the end, the kairos. The word kairos means designated, divinely appointed time, the time of the end. Well, Daniel chapter 2 talks about the last days. Daniel 2, verse 28 and 38. And in the last days, in the fourth empire, which is the Roman Empire, it says the God of heaven shall set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. That is a divinely appointed time for the establishment of the kingdom, ladies and gentlemen. That's God's calendar. Daniel chapter 7, another prophecy of the time of the end in the fourth empire, the Roman Empire. In that time, in the Roman Empire, what do you have? You have the little horn arising, persecuting the saints, wearing out the saints, until the coming of the Son of Man as the Ancient of Days. He destroys the little horn. Now, folks, listen to me. Catch the power of this. This is all in the days of the Fourth Empire, the Roman Empire. Not a revived Roman Empire. Not a Roman Empire that revives 2,000 years after 476 AD when Rome fell. in the days of that fourth empire, meaning Christ had to come and destroy the little horn, i.e., the man of sin, the son of perdition, in the days of Rome. Now, very quickly, before I move on, who is the persecuting power in the days of the fourth empire? And somebody says, oh, well, that was Rome. I used to believe that, used to teach that. No, ladies and gentlemen, you realize Nero was the very first emperor to persecute Christians, lasted 3.5 years. Some say it didn't even go out into the provinces. Some say, oh, well, yeah, it's Domitian. Sorry, that won't work. Even the late-date advocates of the book of Revelation tell us there's virtually no solid evidence that Domitian ever persecuted the church at all. Period. Much less any kind of a systematic persecution. And then you have Diocletian, in the 4th century, and then Rome fell in 476 AD. The point being, Rome, historically, while she most assuredly persecuted Christians in the 3rd and the 4th centuries, was not the main persecutor. No, well, let me make this point. Biblically, the great persecutor of the children of God, from the biblical perspective, was not Rome. It was Israel, Old Covenant Israel. Adolf Harnack, noted scholar from the last century, said unless the evidence is misleading, from the very, very beginning, it was the Jews who persecuted the church and not Rome. In modern times, N.T. Wright says virtually the same thing. All you have to do, ladies and gentlemen, is peruse the New Testament evidence, the New Testament testimony. You will find it's not pagans, except as tools of Israel. It was Israel that persecuted the church in the days of Rome. So, got to move on. All right. So here we have Daniel chapter 7, the appointed time of the fourth empire, the time of the little horn, the coming of the Son of Man as the Ancient of Days, destroying the little horn, receiving the kingdom that shall never, ever be destroyed. That's Daniel chapter 2. When would it occur? At the coming of the Son of Man. Pardon me. Daniel chapter 9, which is where we've been focused for a good little while now. Daniel 9 tells us 70 weeks are determined. From the Greek word, or in the Hebrew rather, the Hebrew word is katak, cut out. And what it means is that in the stream of time, God looked and he cut out the 70 weeks. And within that 70 weeks, he was going to accomplish 6 things. He was going to finish, or I should say within the 70 weeks, God said Israel would fill up the measure of her sin. Within the 70 weeks, guess what else would happen? 70 weeks are determined to seal, vision, and prophecy. So here's what we've done. Boy, I'm running out of time. We've gone to Revelation, other passages as well, but we've gone to Revelation chapter 10. In the sounding of the 7th trumpet, well, you've only got 7 trumpets, and in the 7th trumpet, what happens? The mystery of God foretold by the prophets is fulfilled. Revelation 10, 6 and 7. The mystery of God foretold by the prophets is fulfilled. What is the mystery of God? That would be fulfilled in the 7th trumpet. Well, we go to Revelation chapter 11, verse 15 and following. Let's read that together from the good old King James. The seventh angel sounded. There were great voices in heaven saying, the kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and forever. And the 24 elders which sat before God on their seats fell upon their faces, and they worshipped God, saying, we give you thanks, O Lord God Almighty, which you were, and are to come, because you have taken to thee your great power, and you have reigned. Or some translations render that you have begun to reign. Kind of significant there, but nonetheless. And the nations were angry, and your wrath has come. And the time of the dead that they should be judged, that you should give reward unto your servants, the prophets, to the saints, to them that fear your name, small and great, and you should destroy them which destroy the earth. What happens in the seventh trumpet? The resurrection. Once again, what is the seventh trumpet? It's the last trumpet. Well, Paul said, 1 Corinthians chapter 15, 51 and 52, that at the last trump, the dead would be raised, immortal, incorruptible. So here we have Paul talking about the time of the end, the time of the parousia, which, by the way, would be at the time of the ending of the law, which was the strength of sin, which was nothing but the old covenant law. So here's the resurrection foretold at the sounding of the last trumpet. 1 Corinthians 15, 51 and 52. Now we come to Revelation chapter 11, and we have the sounding of the seventh trumpet. And in the sounding of the seventh trumpet, it's the time of God's wrath. Well, what in Revelation is the time of God's wrath? It's the great day of God's wrath in which the martyrs are vindicated. Revelation 6, 9 through 17. It's the time, once again, of the great day of God's wrath, Revelation chapter 16, against those who killed the prophets. Revelation chapter 16, verse 6, which is none other than Babylon, the great mysterious city, but it's where the Lord was crucified. Revelation 11:8. So the great day of God's wrath is Revelation 6, the time when the martyrs vindicated. Revelation 16, the time when the martyrs are vindicated. When did Jesus say that all the blood of all the righteous shed on the earth would be avenged? Well, before answering that, let's see. This Babylon, Revelation chapter 18, 20 to 24, is the city that killed the apostles and prophets of Jesus himself. It is also the city guilty of shedding all of the blood shed on the earth. Well, that's what Jesus said in Matthew chapter 23, when he said that upon Jerusalem would come all of the blood of all the righteous shed upon the earth. So the great day of wrath is the time of the vindication of the martyrs. All the blood shed on the earth, all the blood of the righteous. And Jesus said, all the blood of the righteous, from righteous Abel unto Zacharias son of Barachias, whom you slew between the temple and the altar, would come upon that generation. Folks, here, it doesn't get any clearer than this. So Revelation chapter 11 is telling us that the sounding of the seventh trumpet is the day, the great day of God's wrath, when the martyrs would be vindicated, and that is reiterated by recapitulation in the book of Revelation no less than 3 times. Revelation 6, Revelation 16, and we could also throw in, Revelation 19, because in the judgment of Babylon, the angels sing the paean of victory and glory. You have avenged the blood of your martyrs. Revelation 19, 1 and 2. So there are three references to the avenging of the blood of the martyrs. And then you come to Revelation chapter 11. And what's it about? The great day of God's wrath against those who destroy the earth. Well, let's see. Revelation chapter 6 again. The martyrs under the altar are crying out, "How long, O Lord, holy and true, do you not avenge us on those who dwell on the earth?" You see, the persecutors dwelt on the earth. They were the ones polluting the land by shedding innocent blood. And now in Revelation chapter 11, those who shed innocent blood, even the blood of the martyrs, the blood of the prophets, for crying out loud, was to be avenged when? At the great day of God's wrath. Revelation 6. When men could run to the mountains, hide in the caves, call to the rocks, and say, "Fall on us and hide us from the great day of God's wrath, from the glory of his presence and the power of his presence." Citing Isaiah 2, 19 and 21, citing Hosea chapter 10, verse 8, both of which were predictions of the judgment of Israel in her last days. See how this conflates perfectly? Isaiah 2, Hosea 10, parallel passages. Judgment of Israel in the last days, at the day of the Lord, when the Lord would arise to shake the earth mightily. Isaiah chapter 2, 21. In the avenging of the martyrs, Hosea chapter 4, verse 4. When men would run to the mountains, hide in the caves, call to the rocks, fall on us. That is Revelation 6. Therefore, it is Revelation 16. Therefore, it's Revelation 19. Therefore, it's Revelation chapter 11. Thus, this great day of God's wrath, listen, folks, Jesus said it was coming in that generation on Jerusalem, and it happened in that generation, and I'm totally out of time. So, I'll see you next week.